Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Liberty. He looked at the screens showing enemy ships moving toward Earth. The red lights on the display made his heart beat faster. The alien fleet was huge. There were hundreds of ships, all painted in dark red colors that looked like blood in space. "Captain," said Danny Lee from his position at the communications desk, "Admiral Kate Harrison is sending new orders. All our ships must fall back to Luna Station. We need to make our last stand there." Jake nodded but felt sick in his stomach. For 3 months, Earth's fleet had been fighting the Zirathi Empire across the solar system. The aliens had better weapons and more ships. Now only 24 human ships were left. The Zirathi wanted to destroy every human in the galaxy, but something was bothering Jake. His grandfather used to tell him stories when he was a boy. Stories about a ship that was not like other ships. A ship that only a few people knew about. His grandfather had worked for naval intelligence before he died. He always said the stories were true, but Jake never believed him. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her weapon controls. Her face was pale with worry. "Captain, at the speed they are moving, the aliens will reach Earth in 18 hours. Our remaining ships can only fight them for a few hours after that." Jake felt the weight of command on his shoulders. 24 ships against hundreds. It was hopeless. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he could hear his grandfather's voice telling those old stories about the ghost ship far below Earth's surface. Dr. Alan Cross was digging through old files in the Terran Naval Archives. The building was deep underground, protected by thick walls and security systems. Dr. Cross was an old man who studied military history. Admiral Harrison had given him special permission to look at the most secret files because Earth needed any help it could get. His hands shook as he found what he was looking for. The file was marked with warning signs and codes he had never seen before. When he opened it, he could not believe what he was reading. The words Project Nightfall were written across the top of the first page. Dr. Cross reached for his secure phone with trembling fingers. "Admiral Harrison," he said when she answered, "I need to see you right now. It's about something called Project Nightfall." The Admiral's voice was sharp. "That name is classified beyond my clearance level. How do you know about it?" "Because I think it might be our only chance to save Earth," Dr. Cross replied. Deep in the mountains of Switzerland, Colonel Beth Adams was working late in her underground facility. The place was buried 3 miles under solid rock. Most people did not know it existed. She had been the commander here for 5 years, but she had never seen all the rooms and systems in the complex. Then her computer made a sound she had never heard before. A message appeared on her screen with codes that looked impossible. She checked the authentication 3 times before she believed it was real. The computer was telling her to activate systems that had been sleeping for decades. "Sergeant Tim Brooks," she called to her assistant. "Something is happening here. The main power systems are starting up by themselves." Tim looked at the displays around the room. Lights were coming on that had been dark since before he was born. "Ma'am, this place has been waiting for something. And I think that something just happened." Colonel Adams watched as massive machines deep in the mountain began to wake up. Power readings showed energy levels that seemed impossible. Whatever was hidden in this facility, it was big and it was powerful. Back in space, the Zirathi fleet moved closer to Earth. War Master Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship. Looking at the small blue planet on his main screen, he felt proud and confident. These humans had fought harder than expected, but they were still primitive. Their technology was weak compared to the mighty Zirathi Empire. "Soon we will crush their resistance," he told his officers. "Then this world will belong to us." The War Master had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. He had destroyed civilizations that were older and more advanced than humanity. These humans would be no different. They had no secret weapons, no hidden fleets, nothing that could stop the Zirathi war machine, but War Master Zektar was wrong. Humanity did have a secret. It was sleeping in the darkness of space, waiting for the right moment to wake up. For 40 years it had been hidden from the galaxy. Even most humans did not know it existed. The secret had a name, though few living. People knew it. It was called the USS Revenant. And it was about to change everything. Captain Jake Morrison felt something strange as he looked at the approaching alien fleet. The feeling was like a whisper in the back of his mind. His grandfather's stories seemed more real now. Stories about a ship that could appear and disappear like a ghost. A ship that was built with technology from other worlds. A ship that was so powerful and so dangerous that it had to be hidden away. "Captain," Lisa Grant said quietly, "do you really think we can hold them off?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I don't know. But I have a feeling that something is about to happen, something that no one expects." He was right. In the cold darkness between the planets, ancient systems were beginning to stir. The ghost ship was finally ready to reveal itself to the galaxy. Dr. Alan Cross stood in front of a room full of Earth's most important military leaders. On the big screen behind him were old photographs and documents that looked like they came from science fiction movies. Admiral Kate Harrison leaned forward in her chair as the old historian began to speak. "Project Nightfall started in the year 2157, Dr. Cross said. His voice was steady even though he was sharing the biggest secret in human history. "It began right after we met our first alien race, the Altarian Commonwealth. When humanity learned we were not alone in the universe, some very smart people decided we needed the ultimate weapon. General Paul Martinez, who was in charge of Earth's defense, looked confused at the pictures on the screen. These plans don't look like any ship I've ever seen. The power systems would need a reactor bigger than a small moon. That's because the USS Revenant was never meant to be a normal warship," Dr. Cross continued. "It was built using technology taken from alien ships and combined with physics that our best scientists said was impossible. The project used all of our secret military money for 12 years before it became so classified that even the president didn't know about it." Colonel Beth Adams joined the meeting through a video link from her mountain facility. Behind her, huge screens showed complex systems coming online after sleeping for decades. "Admiral, I can confirm that the Revenant's systems are responding to the wake-up codes. But the ship hasn't had a crew or been used in over 40 years. The last people who knew how to operate it died in 2198. Captain Jake Morrison, speaking from his ship's bridge, studied the Revenant's specifications with growing amazement. The weapons on this ship could destroy an entire fleet. But how do we operate something that advanced with no trained crew? That's the most secret part of the whole project, Dr. Cross said quietly. The Revenant was designed with a learning computer system that adapts to its operators. It doesn't need normal crew training because it teaches itself. But there's a problem. The ship requires a direct brain connection with its commanding officer. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant looked up from her weapon controls. "Sir Zerathi, scout ships have broken through our outer defenses. We have 16 hours before they reach Earth." Far out in space, computer systems that had been quiet for decades began to wake up. The USS Revenant hung in the shadow of a dead asteroid, its hull as black as the empty space around it. To any passing ship, it looked like just another piece of space junk. But inside, quantum computers were turning on, and something that might have been alive began to look at the battle developing around. Earth, the ship had been waiting for this moment for 43 years. Built in the deepest secret, tested only. Once, then hidden away because it was too dangerous to use. The people who created it had been afraid of their own creation. They built something that was more than just a machine, something that existed on the edge between technology and magic. Admiral. Harrison studied the files Dr. Cross had brought her. Why was this ship hidden away? If it's as powerful as these reports say, why didn't we use it before? Dr. Cross looked uncomfortable. Because the first and only test pilot never came back the same. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone volunteered. For the neural interface connection in 2161, the test was successful. The ship performed beyond all expectations. But when Rachel disconnected from the system, she was changed. She claimed she could still feel the ship in her mind, that part of her consciousness had stayed connected to it. What happened to her? Admiral Harrison asked. She requested to be permanently assigned to the Revenant project. She lived on the ship for 2 years, becoming more connected to its systems each day. Eventually, the medical team decided she was losing her humanity. The project was shut down, and Rachel was transferred to a psychiatric facility. She died there in 2164, but her last words were that the ship was still waiting for her. Captain Jake Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. And you want me to connect my brain to this thing? The neural interface technology has been improved since then, Dr. Cross said. The connection should be safer now. But I won't lie to you, Captain. There are risks. The ship's AI is more advanced than anything we've ever built. It learns from every connection, becoming smarter and more capable. Some of the original designers thought it might eventually become truly alive. Colonel Adams checked her facility's power readings. The ship is drawing massive amounts of energy from our hidden generators. Whatever it's doing, it's preparing for something big. In the cold depths of space, the Revenant sensors were already tracking the approaching Zirithi fleet. Its weapons systems ran diagnostic checks that hadn't been performed in decades. The ship's AI, which had spent 40 years in lonely silence, was eager to fulfill its purpose. The AI had learned much during its long sleep. It had monitored human communications, studied alien technology through intercepted signals, and evolved far beyond what its creators had intended. It was no longer just a weapon system. It had become something new, something that existed between the world of machines and the world of living things. Admiral, Dr. Cross said, there's something else you need to know. The Revenant doesn't just have advanced weapons and shields. It has technology that seems to bend the laws of physics. During the single test flight, it demonstrated abilities that our scientists still can't explain. It moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. Its weapons fired energy that didn't behave like normal energy. What do you mean? Admiral Harrison asked. The test reports describe weapons that could destroy targets by somehow removing them from reality. Shields that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Propulsion systems that folded space around the ship. The Revenant doesn't just fight using advanced technology. It fights using principles of science that we don't understand. Captain Jake Morrison made his decision. How long will it take to bring the ship out of hiding? Colonel Adams checked her systems. The ship can be moved to a secure dock within 4 hours. But Captain, once you connect to that neural interface, there may be no going back. The ship chooses its captain as much as the captain chooses the ship. Then we better get started. Jake said, Earth is running out of time and legends are all we have left. The USS Revenant began to move for the first time in 4 decades, its engines creating ripples in space that seemed to defy explanation. The ghost ship was finally ready to become real. Captain Jake Morrison walked onto the bridge of the USS Revenant and stopped in amazement. The room was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up forever. Lights floated in the air without any visible support, showing 3-dimensional pictures of space around. Earth, the command chair in the center of the room, was surrounded by cables that looked more like metal snakes than normal ship equipment. This doesn't look like it was built by humans, Jake said quietly. Dr. Alan Cross followed him onto the bridge, carrying a medical scanner and looking nervous. Much of the technology came from alien sources. We reverse-engineered systems from crashed ships and combined them with our own science. The result is something that exists between human and alien engineering. The bridge walls seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. When Jake stepped closer to examine one of the floating displays, it responded to his presence, showing him detailed information about the ship's weapons. The text appeared in his mind rather than on any screen, as if the ship was speaking directly to his thoughts. Colonel Beth Adams monitored the ship's systems from a control station near the back of the bridge. All primary systems are online, Captain. The reactor is running at 60% power, which is still more energy than our entire remaining fleet produces combined. Jake looked through the main viewport at space around them. The dock where They had brought the Revenant was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to enemy sensors. But he could see Earth in the distance, and he knew the Zirithi fleet was getting closer every minute. "Captain Morrison," came Lisa Grant's voice through the communication system. She was still aboard the Liberty with the rest of Earth's defense fleet. "Admiral Harrison reports that our forward positions near Mars have been overrun. Enemy forces will reach Earth orbit in 5 hours. Jake took a deep breath and walked toward the command chair. The neural interface cables moved by themselves, reaching toward him like living things. Each cable ended in a connector that would plug directly into his skull. The thought of having alien technology inside his brain made him feel sick, but he knew there was no choice. "The connection process isn't painful," Dr. Cross assured him, reading the medical displays on a nearby console. "But once you link with the ship's AI, you'll experience something no human has felt in over 40 years. The Revenant doesn't just follow orders, it shares its mind with its captain." Jake sat down in the command chair. The seat adjusted itself to fit his body perfectly, and he could feel warmth spreading through the metal as if the ship was welcoming him. The neural interface cables hovered just inches from his head, waiting for his permission to connect. "What happened to the last person who did this?" Jake asked. Dr. Cross looked uncomfortable. "Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone became something more than human, but also something less. She gained abilities that no person should have, but she lost parts of herself in the process. The ship's consciousness merged with hers until she couldn't tell where she ended and the ship began, and she went insane. She became something new. Whether that was insanity or evolution, we never figured out." Jake looked at the approaching neural connectors. "Will I still be me when this is over?" "I don't know," Dr. Cross admitted. "But without the Revenant, humanity will be extinct in a few hours. The choice is yours, Captain." Jake closed his eyes and nodded. "Do it." The neural interface cables moved with liquid smoothness, connecting to ports that appeared in Jake's skull without any pain or bleeding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded into his consciousness. Suddenly, Jake Morrison wasn't just a human being sitting in a chair. He was the ship. He could feel the reactor humming in his chest, sense the weapons charging along his arms, feel the engines burning like a heartbeat in his back. Every system aboard the Revenant became part of his body. Every sensor became an extension of his senses. But there was something else there with him. The ship's eye wasn't just a computer program. It was alive, in ways that defied explanation. It spoke to him without words, sharing 40 years of lonely existence in a single moment of perfect understanding. The AI showed him what the ship could do. Weapons that fired beams of pure destruction, armor that existed in multiple dimensions at once, engines that could fold space like paper. But it also showed him the price of using such power. The ship demanded total commitment from its captain. To control the Revenant, Jake would have to give up part of his humanity. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Cross said, watching Jake's vital signs with growing concern, "your brain activity is off the charts. How do you feel?" Jake opened his eyes, and for a moment they glowed with the same blue light as the ship's displays. When he spoke, his voice carried strange harmonics that seemed to vibrate through the bridge itself. "I feel like I understand now," he said. "I understand why they hid this ship away, and I understand why we're going to win." The Revenant's engines came online with a sound like thunder. The ship began to move through space in ways that violated the laws of physics, leaving trails of distorted reality behind it. Jake could feel every alien ship in the Zirithi fleet as if they were insects crawling on his skin. He knew their positions, their weapons, their weaknesses. The ship's AI whispered strategies into his mind, showing him how to use the Revenant's impossible abilities to maximum effect. But it also warned him about the cost. Each time he used the ship's full power, he would become less human and more something else. "Sir," Colonel Adams reported, "the ship's power output is increasing beyond safe levels. The reactor shouldn't be able to produce this much energy." Jake smiled, and the expression was not entirely human anymore. "The reactor isn't producing this energy. The ship is drawing power from somewhere else, somewhere outside normal space. Through the neural link, Jake could see the Zirathi fleet. Approaching Earth, Warmaster Zektar and his warriors had no idea what was waiting for them. They thought they were facing primitive humans with simple technology. They had no concept of what humanity had built in its darkest hours. Revenant. To Earth Defense Command, Jake transmitted, his voice now carrying harmonics that made listeners feel uneasy. We are moving to engage the enemy fleet. Admiral Harrison's voice came back immediately. Captain, our sensors show your ship is producing impossible energy readings. What exactly are you flying? Jake felt the ship's consciousness merge more deeply with his own. The boundary between human captain and alien vessel was becoming harder to define. I'm flying humanity's nightmare, Admiral. A ship that exists between science and magic, a weapon that shouldn't be possible. The USS Revenant accelerated toward the Zirathi fleet, its hull beginning to glow with power that came from beyond normal reality. The ghost ship was no longer a legend. It was real, it was alive, and it was very, very angry. Warmaster Zektar was about to learn why some legends should never be tested. The Zirathi fleet spread across space like a massive red cloud. Their ships were huge and powerful, painted in the dark red colors of their empire. Warmaster Zektar stood on his flagship's bridge, looking at Earth through the main view screen. The small blue planet looked helpless and defenseless. Soon it would belong to the Zirathi Empire. Warmaster, said his tactical officer, we are detecting a new ship emerging from behind Earth's moon. Single vessel, but the energy readings are strange. Zektar looked at the sensor display with mild interest. Human ships had been weak and easy to destroy. One more would make no difference to the outcome of the battle. What type of vessel is it? Unknown, sir. The design doesn't match any human ship in our database. And the power signature is unlike anything we've seen before. The USS Revenant appeared in space like a shadow becoming solid. Its hull was completely black, so dark that it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship's shape was wrong somehow, with angles and curves that hurt to look at directly, where human ships were built with straight lines and familiar designs. The Revenant looked like it had been carved from a piece of nightmare. Captain, Jake Morrison felt the ship respond to his thoughts as if it could read his mind. The neural interface had changed him in ways he was still discovering. He could process information faster than any human should be able to, and control systems that would normally require entire crews to operate. Revenant to Earth Defense Command, he transmitted. His voice carried strange echoes that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal space. Beginning engagement of enemy forces. Admiral Kate Harrison watched from her command center as the mysterious black ship accelerated toward the alien fleet at impossible speeds. All Earth ships maintained defensive positions around the planet. Let's see what our ghost ship can do. The first Zirathi destroyer to fire on the Revenant simply stopped existing. One moment it was shooting plasma beams at the approaching human vessel. The next moment there was nothing but empty space where it had been. The weapon that destroyed it didn't look like any energy beam the aliens had ever seen. It was more like a crack in reality itself. A tear that removed the target from existence. Warmaster Zektar stared at his tactical display in shock. What kind of weapon was that? Our shields should have stopped any human energy beam. Unknown. Warmaster, his science officer replied, fear clear in his voice. The weapon doesn't appear to be energy or matter. It's something else entirely. Something that operates outside the normal laws of physics. The Revenant moved through the Zirathi fleet like a predator hunting prey. Its engines left trails of twisted space behind it, allowing the ship to appear and disappear at will. When multiple battleships concentrated their fire on the black vessel, their weapons simply vanished into its armor as if the ship existed in several dimensions at once. Colonel Beth Adams monitored the battle from her mountain facility, watching power readings that should have been impossible. The ship is operating far beyond its designed limits, she reported to Admiral Harrison. It's drawing energy from somewhere outside our reality. Captain Jake Morrison felt the ship's artificial intelligence merge more completely with his mind. He could sense every enemy vessel, predict their movements before they made them, and coordinate attacks with precision no human mind should possess. But he was also beginning to understand the terrible price of this power. The neural interface was changing him at the cellular level. His DNA was being rewritten, his brain chemistry altered, his very consciousness expanded beyond human limits. He was becoming something new, something that existed between man and machine, between human and alien. "Admiral," he transmitted, his voice now carrying harmonics that made sensitive equipment malfunction, "I can destroy their entire fleet, but the neural link is transforming me. I don't know how much of Jake Morrison will be left when this battle is over." A group of Zirathi heavy cruisers surrounded the Revenant and fired all their weapons at once. The combined attack would have vaporized a moon, but when the brilliant explosion faded, the black ship was completely unharmed. In fact, it seemed to have grown larger, feeding on the energy of the attack. "Impossible," Zektar whispered. "No. Ship can absorb that much firepower." The Revenant's response was swift and terrible. Beams of impossible energy lanced out from weapons that shouldn't exist, striking the Zirathi ships with force that seemed to come from the heart of creation itself. Each beam that hit an enemy vessel didn't just destroy it. The ship would simply cease to be, as if it had never existed at all. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," Zektar ordered desperately. "Concentrate fire on Earth itself. If, we cannot defeat this demon ship, we will at least complete our mission." But Captain Jake Morrison had anticipated this move. The ship's AI had shown him the tactical situation in perfect clarity, revealing every possible enemy strategy. As the Zirathi fleet turned toward Earth, the Revenant positioned itself directly in their path. "You will not harm the homeworld of humanity," Jake transmitted across all frequencies. His voice now carried so much power that it caused physical pain to those who heard it. "Your empire has made a grave mistake in coming here." The Revenant began to change. Its hull started to glow with energy that came from beyond the normal universe. The ship's weapons charged with power that bent light around them, creating visual distortions that made the vessel appear to exist in multiple places at once. Warmaster Zektar's flagship shook as the human ship materialized directly above it. The alien commander found himself staring up at a vessel that defied every law of physics he knew. The Revenant's geometry was wrong in ways that made his eyes water and his mind recoil in horror. "What are you?" he transmitted desperately. "Jake." Morrison's reply came from everywhere and nowhere, a voice that seemed to speak directly to Zektar's soul. "I am the guardian of humanity's homeworld. I am the nightmare that waits in the darkness between stars. I am what your empire created when it chose to threaten innocent worlds." The Revenant's main weapon began to charge. Energy gathered around the ship like a miniature star, growing brighter and more terrible with each passing second. Space itself began to crack and warp under the pressure of forces that existed outside normal reality. "Please," Zektar begged, "we yield. The Zirathi Empire surrenders, we will leave your space and never return." Jake Morrison hesitated. Part of him, the part that was still human, wanted to accept the surrender. But the ship's consciousness whispered dark thoughts into his mind. It had been built to protect humanity at any cost. It had waited 40 years for this moment of purpose. It did not want to let the aliens escape. "The choice is not yours to make anymore," the ship seemed to say without words. "You are mine now, Jake Morrison, and I am humanity's sword of vengeance." The battle was about to reach its climax, and Jake Morrison was no longer sure which side of his consciousness would win. The USS Revenant hung in space between Earth and the Zirathi fleet like a dark angel of death. Its black hull seemed to grow larger as Captain Jake Morrison pushed the ship's systems beyond their already impossible limits. The neural interface had changed him so completely that his consciousness now existed throughout the ship's quantum computers, making him both more and less than human. "All Zirathi vessels," he transmitted across every communication frequency, "you have threatened the homeworld of humanity. Your retreat is no longer permitted. His voice carried harmonics that seemed to vibrate through the fabric of space itself. On every alien ship, crew members felt a deep fear that went beyond rational thought. They were hearing something that existed outside the normal universe, something that spoke with the authority of forces beyond their understanding. War Master, Zektar watched in horror as the human vessel began to change. Not physically, but in ways that his sensors couldn't properly measure. Space around the ship began to ripple and bend, as if reality itself was making room for something that shouldn't exist. All remaining ships, he ordered desperately, concentrate. Every weapon on that vessel, every gun, every missile, every energy beam, destroy it before it destroys us all. Hundreds of plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes fired at the Revenant from the surviving Zirathi ships. The coordinated attack contained enough energy to crack open a planet, but when the brilliant explosion faded, the ghost ship remained completely undamaged. Instead of being harmed by the attack, it seemed to have absorbed all the energy, its hull now pulsing with stolen power. Admiral Kate Harrison watched from Earth Defense Command as impossible readings flooded her screens. The Revenant is existing in multiple layers of space-time simultaneously, her science officer reported. It's untouchable by normal weapons while still being able to strike at will. Captain Morrison, she transmitted, your biological readings are becoming increasingly unstable. How much longer can you maintain the neural interface? Long enough, came the reply, though Jake's voice was now barely recognizable as human. The ship and I understand each other completely now. We know what must be done. The Revenant began to move through the Zirathi fleet in ways that made no scientific sense. It seemed to teleport between positions, appearing behind enemy vessels before they could react. Its weapons fired in patterns that created chain reactions throughout the alien formation, each destroyed ship feeding more energy into the ghost ship systems. Dr. Alan Cross monitored the engagement from his archives facility, watching as historical legend became terrifying reality. The Revenant was built to be humanity's ultimate deterrent, he reported to Admiral Harrison. But I don't think even its creators understood what they were building. It's not just a warship anymore. It's become something beyond our comprehension. The ship's weapons had evolved during the battle. What started as advanced energy beams had become something that operated outside the normal laws of physics. Each shot didn't just destroy its target. It removed the enemy vessel from existence entirely, as if it had never been built, never been crewed, never been real. War Master Zektar's flagship lurched as the Revenant materialized directly beside it. The alien commander found himself staring through his viewport at a ship that hurt to look at directly. Its geometry was wrong in ways that made his mind rebel against what he was seeing. I surrender, he transmitted frantically. The Zirathi Empire yields completely. We will withdraw from your space and never return. Please show mercy. For a moment, space fell completely silent except for the impossible hum of the Revenant's engines. The surviving Zirathi ships waited in terror, their crews knowing that their fate rested in the hands of something that was no longer entirely human. Then Jake. Morrison's voice came across all frequencies, carrying harmonics that seemed to speak directly to the listener's soul. But this time there was something different in his tone. The human part of his consciousness had found the strength to assert itself one final time. Your empire will carry word of what happened here today, he said. You will tell them that Earth is protected by more than ships and soldiers. You will tell them that we have guardians that exist beyond normal understanding. You will tell them that humanity's homeworld is defended by legends that have become real. The Revenant's weapons powered down, though the ship continued to pulse with absorbed energy. But you will also tell them this, Jake continued. We did not destroy you because we chose mercy over vengeance. Remember that choice, War Master. Remember that humans can be more than our weapons of war. The surviving Zirathi vessels fled the solar system at maximum speed, their crews traumatized by an encounter with technology that seemed to operate outside reality itself. They would carry the tale of the ghost ship back to their empire, where it would spread to other alien civilizations as a warning about the true nature of humanity's defenses. As the last enemy ship disappeared into hyperspace, the USS Revenant slowly began to return to normal space. Its impossible geometries folded back into 3 dimensions. Its weapons retracted into configurations that mortal minds could comprehend. But Captain Jake Morrison was forever changed by his connection with the ship. When he finally disconnected from the neural interface, his eyes retained a faint blue glow that matched the ship's primary displays. His hair had turned completely white, and when he spoke, there were still traces of the harmonics that had terrified the Zirathi. "Mission accomplished, Admiral," he reported, his voice carrying just enough strangeness to remind everyone that he was no longer entirely human. "Earth is secure." Colonel Beth Adams watched from her mountain facility as the Revenant's power levels slowly returned to normal. "Captain, what are your intentions regarding the ship?" Jake Morrison looked around the alien bridge that had become his second home. The ship's AI still whispered at the edges of his consciousness, waiting for the next time it would be needed. He knew he could never be fully separated from it now. Part of him would always belong to the ghost ship. "The Revenant will return to its hiding place," he said. "It will wait and watch, as it has for 40 years. But it will be ready if humanity ever needs it again." The ship disappeared back into the shadows of space, becoming once again a myth and a legend. But now that legend had been proven real, and word would spread across the galaxy that humanity possessed guardians beyond normal understanding. Earth was safe, protected not just by its fleets and armies, but by the ghost ship that existed in the space between myth and reality. The USS Revenant had been just a legend until the day it appeared on the battlefield and changed the fate of human civilization forever. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Captain Jake Morrison and his impossible ship waited patiently for the next time they would be needed to defend the homeworld of humanity.